welcome to today's webinar, Launching a High School IT Community Help Desk. Thank you so much to the audience for joining. If you want to help adults in senior living communities with IT needs, encourage high school students to develop skills and confidence, and foster intergenerational connections, you've come to the right place. I'm Linda Fandel, Work-Based Learning Liaison at Iowa Workforce Development, and I'm pleased to be here with my colleague from the Iowa Department of Education, Heather Meissen, and 4 outstanding presenters. I'll briefly introduce them, and then they'll tell you more about themselves shortly. Kyle Coolers, Computer Programming and Cybersecurity instructor and coach at the Waterloo Career Center and Hawkeye Community College. And this year he's the 25-26 Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellow. Kirsten Lund, Recreational Therapist Specialist at NewAldaya Lifescapes in Cedar Falls. Becky Carter, Director of Wellness at Wesley Life's Halcyon House in Washington, along with resident Tish Corey. Thanks to each of our presenters and to Greg Vargas, who's managing the webinar behind the scenes. We could not do this without you, Greg. The purpose of our webinar today is to encourage senior living communities and their local high schools to consider launching a high school IT community help desk partnership. We stole this idea from Waterloo Career Center and NewAldaya, which started their partnership several years ago. There's going to be a help desk playbook that we'll make available to you to consider, and that lays out how they did this work. We also recently learned about another way to create a help desk from Wesley Life in Washington, so invited Becky to share that model as well. And Iowa Workforce Development and the Iowa Department of Education will act as matchmakers to connect senior living communities and high schools if you'd like us to do that. Once connected, the school and senior living community will decide what model to use, and they'll coordinate schedules, supervisions, and guidelines for visits. As I've invited senior living communities across Iowa to the webinar to consider attending today's webinar, I've heard about many ways this partnership can be helpful. That includes setting up iPads, figuring out how to use hotspots, and learning how to use spreadsheets. One IT provider has an online report out there that says residents that move into senior living communities bring 5 to 7 devices with them on average. That meanwhile, 73% of older adults express that a lack of necessary help with technology is an issue. And as a result, this report said over 18% of senior living community staff time is consumed by navigating residents' tech queries, because we all know we need tech just about all the time these days. So the need is very clear, and how to meet it is the question. As the webinar gets underway, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. And following the webinar, please let us know if you're interested in launching a help desk partnership in your community. We'll share our contact information, and we'd love to help you get started. So with that, it's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Kyle Coolers. Kyle, would you please start with telling us a little bit more about yourself and how things got rolling with NewAldaya?
Yeah, hey, I'm Kyle Coolers, and so first I have to start by saying I'm currently, as Linda said, I'm working for the federal government for a year. So I have to put this disclaimer out there that everything I say represents my personal views and not the views of the federal government or any agency within it. So now that that's done, back probably about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, maybe about 4 years ago, a student approached me and said his grandma was in a retirement village and was wondering if we had some students could come over and help them out with some of their technology needs. And this was in like September, October. And that student, so I said, okay, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. So that student kind of coordinated some other students, and we got the group together, and we started with 4 or 5 students, reached out to NewAldaya, and kind of went from there. And so after we did it at NewAldaya, And then a couple the local facilities reached out and said, hey, we hear that you did this over here at NewAldaya. Can you come do it at our place? And so Friendship Village and a couple other places. So we ended up doing it at 3 different locations. And so we would do it 1 hour a week, and we would go, and then students would just they would be there, and they would take care of any technology needs that the residents would have. And so it really helps build the students' confidence in moving forward. And then it's a win for the residents because they get some training, some technology needs, curiosities, questions, um, issues that they might have, maybe get some of those fixed and taken care of. So that's kind of where it's at now. And so now I got a message from students. Here I've gotten a couple messages while I'm in DC in the last couple of weeks. And so they did it first semester. And so with my replacement at the Waterloo Career Center, and they're just getting ready to ramp it up and get started here second semester. And so it really helps students with scholarships and just kind of other opportunities, and they can count it as work experience on their end. So, Linda, I'll turn it back. Oops.
Thank you, Kyle. And just a quick couple follow-up questions. How did Waterloo Career Center with the initial partnership start to set things up? How did you decide how many students, how to prepare the students? Could you talk a little about that, please?
Yeah, initially I'm always want to maybe start a little bit small. And so I, had 3 or 4 students and just kind of reached out, and really it was kind of open-ended. The students said they would do it in the evening, after school, during the school day, whatever, worked out with the facility. And you'll hear a little bit more from Kirsten here in a little bit about that. And so it worked best to do it at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I think we were doing it on like a Tuesday or a Thursday. And then it was recurring. So every month, so that way they could put it on the calendar. But just kind of, reaching out to their activities director, reaching out to the facility. A lot of communities in Iowa have retirement villages in different locations where there might be residents with some of these needs.
And the students were not paid, correct?
No, the students are not paid, and so it's volunteer, it's community service. But they like it probably more than the residents. And so the residents I know really, really like it, but the students look forward to it and they really like it. I had one girl, she was just like, oh, I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. And I'm like, just go and sit and watch. Well, she went, and one of the residents approached her and just said, hey, can you come attach a picture in an email to send to my granddaughter and show me how to do it? And her face just lit up, and she was just like, oh, hey, I can do that. And so from that point on, she was a rock star. And so really helping students kind of to be able to have that interaction, the intergenerational interaction too, is kind of fun to watch in those settings.
Well, and a nice note in the chat from Dennis at the Waterloo Career Center that they're rolling with their events, currently hosting one event each month at 3 different retirement communities. So thank you, Dennis. That is great to hear. So with that, I've got more questions, but I want to save some of them. So let's turn things over to Kirsten Lunn. Kirsten, could you fill us in on how things got started and how they've been going from New Aldaya's perspective?
Yeah, like she said, Linda said, my name's Kirsten Lunn. I'm one of the recreational therapists here at NewAldaya. So yeah, Kyle approached us, like he said, a couple years ago for this tech help desk, and we definitely had some residents, ask a variety of staff members, kind of anyone when they saw different tech questions. And so I think when this opportunity came up, we were like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You kind of realize how many tech questions you get during the day, during the week and things like that of all different varieties. And yeah, so we got that started. Like Kyle said, we did about 1 to 2 times a month for 45 minutes. I kind of was there to, as the staff member, to gather residents and facilitate that program also during the 45-minute time. And we put it on our activity calendar also to kind of give the residents a heads up as well. And like I said, we gathered them also. So it's been going good. Kind of some schedule changes this semester, with like the different calendars and things like that. But we're hoping to get back into it this semester also. Like Kyle said, the students love it and the residents really love the interaction with the students also and getting their questions answered. So yeah, it went well for us during that time. So
what can you talk about some of the IT needs that residents brought to the students?
yeah, there's a lot of different needs that would come up. Some just simply like, how do I listen to this voicemail that my daughter sent me? I found this picture. I had this picture I wanted to show my friends a couple days ago. Where did that go? We also would have some questions about someone needed to update their computer. And they didn't know how to do that. They wanted to make sure they weren't going to kind of lose their information. So the students were able to help them with those kinds of things. There's also, the Facebook, social media. I feel like a lot of people, we try to help them. Residents still experience things, whether their environment changes or different things like that. And, you might used to get cards in the mail from your family. Well, now it's Facebook. Well, how do I see like what my grandkids are doing? How do I find my daughter's Facebook page so I can see these pictures? And so there's a lot of questions surrounding that as well to get there. And then events also, we have independent living residents here. A lot, things might have been posted in the newspaper and now everyone kind of puts them on Facebook. So, how do I find these events that I'm interested that, I used to find somewhere else and now that are on social media. So lots of different variety of, sometimes the simplest things to, how do I find this information that I used to find? So.
That's a great series of examples. I talked with somebody at a senior living community this morning who called to let me know she couldn't attend the webinar, but she'll listen to the recording, which we'll send out to everyone by February 27th, if I forgot to mention that, along with the playbook. But she mentioned that they have a 103-year-old resident who is very tech savvy and is trying to get into using spreadsheets. And so that is also one of the needs that came up. And then lots of people needing help with setting up iPads. Those were a couple of the things that she mentioned. So it's interesting to hear about those different needs. So a question that's sort of for both Kirsten and Kyle. I believe you developed the guidelines together for what students would and wouldn't be able to do. And that two things jumped out at me. Those guidelines are part of the playbook for anybody listening or watching today. So you'll get those. But I thought they were really well done guidelines. One of those guidelines was to make it clear to the residents that students can't fix everything. They'll do their best, but there are limitations. And another one was not to touch hearing aids because they're so expensive. So if something were to go wrong, that would really be hard to fix. Kyle or Kristen, can you talk a little bit about, the kinds of things you'd really want both residents and students to know as part of this partnership? Maybe we can start with you, Kirsten, and then go to Kyle.
Yeah, I think obviously as a senior living facility, resident safety is the number one priority, kind of keeping confidentiality important. So I think it's important to let students know kind of what yeses and what nos are. I mean, residents, they just want your help. They might not think about, oh, maybe my family should help me with this, different things like that. Students help a lot, but I think it was important to have guidelines to kind of say, here are things that, we should leave to family or staff, and here are things that students of the public, can help residents with and still get that assistance to the residents. And then them just knowing too, I think it's easier to meet in a central location, kind of not going around the facility and different things like that. But I think the guidelines kind of make it clear of, for resident information, what the students know so they can know what to help with and maybe what to ask the staff to help with. I think I always tell the students, if there's something that's not on the guidelines, you can talk to me and I can definitely find the right person that will get that solved for them is sensitive information or something like that. So
Yeah, that's a great way to have a backstop.
Mhm.
Kyle, anything you would add to that?
Yeah, no, Kristen did a great job of explaining it. Just a couple of things that that I always talk with students about ahead of time, and I try and go with them as much as possible. But there are times where maybe I can't, so then another person, an instructor or administrator, goes with the students, especially if it's during the school day. So I'm there to kind of watch and kind of keep an eye on what they're doing and stay in tune with that. Plus, the guidelines are kind of fluid. And I think Kristen and I found this out kind of as it went along. There were things that kind of bubbled up, and we're just like, oh, okay, we maybe need to change, address that a little bit differently next time and maybe have, some guidance around that. And so I do try and every time before we go, review those guidelines and just say, hey, remember, here's the 6 or 7 things that need to stay at the front of your head in the next hour and just be aware of. Um, and then if there's any issues or anything that they think is maybe questionable, to maybe ask myself or Kirsten. And Kirsten's a great partner. She's there, she's around, she helps coordinate, with the residents and everything. So I think that partnership also is important to see the adults, and so the students to see that the representative that's with them, and then also the residents to see Kirsten there involved too.
Yeah, no, good. All good points. So thank you both so much. I know we'll want to come back to you, but before we move along, I just want to add that my colleague Jody Smith from the Department of Education, who oversees work-based learning and industry recognized credentials, is with us now as well. Jody, feel free to jump in with any additional questions you have, and she'll also be presenting and wrapping up today. So let's move on to Becky Carter and to sorry, I got a little behind here. My apologies, Tish, for forgetting your last name, Tish Corey. Because I had to switch laptops because of video issues, so I've left my notes in various places trying to get things together. So apologies for being a little scattered. But Becky Carter and Tish Corey, let's turn to you next to talk about the different model that you have at Halcyon House. I'd reached out to all the Wesley Life locations around the state saying, would you be interested in considering this partnership? It turned out that Wesley Life in Washington already has a different kind of partnership with an intern. So it's a great model as well. And Becky and Tish, if you could talk about that, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, we started our OGT tech support program about 2 years ago. We reached out to the Washington Community High School, which we are very blessed because it's right across the street from us. So we reached out to the on-the-job training coordinator, Shelly Dua, and we said, we see a growing need for tech support. We feel here at Halcyon, our team members were feeling a little overwhelmed because they didn't feel like they always had the knowledge or the time to help the residents out like they wanted to. So we asked Shelly if she had a student that had a real passion for information technology, had patience, and just was interested in and coming and working as a tech support for us. So she did. She introduced us to Charlie. We sat down, we visited with Charlie. We took him through an interview, just like we hire any employee. We did a background check, application, references, and we brought him on board. Charlie was here and on our current OJT support person is here Monday through Thursday on site. It's a paid position. We pay $14 an hour. They're here for about 90 minutes each day. We wanted to make it as simple as we could for the residents to schedule appointments. So they just contact our front office receptionist and she schedules an appointment with this. Now this year it's Sawyer. And that's one other thing that we've been very fortunate is when we do have a student, they usually stay with us all year. Last year, Charlie stayed with us through the summer, and we're hoping that Sawyer will be able to do the same this summer. So, but they contact our front office, they schedule an appointment, they meet with the tech support person in the tech lab. Or if it's an issue in the resident's home, we do allow our tech support students to go in and help them, because often it might be with a smart TV or a device in the apartment that cannot be brought to the tech lab. So that's actually worked out really well. Halcyon House is a continuum care community. So what that means is we provide services from long-term care to memory support, assisted living, and independent living. And we have introduced our OJT students to all levels of care. So if we have someone in our long-term care that needs some assistance, we have our lifestyle coordinators reach out to our front office and schedule an appointment for our OJT student to go over and work to assist that resident with any technical needs. We also work closely with the OJT coordinator from the high school. If we have any attendance issues or any kind of issues at all, we do share those with her, but we've been very fortunate. We've had exceptional students help us out here at Halcyon. And then we complete an evaluation at the end of the term. The Halcyon House leader, which is typically myself, along with the parent and the OJ coordinator, sign off on that evaluation. And I'll give feedback to the students. We have just found it to be very beneficial all the way around, for the students, for the residents, and for the team members here at Halcyon. Not only does it relieve some added responsibilities for our team members as far as trying to help out the residents, but it just gives the residents gain so much, as well as the students, with that intergenerational connection. So overall it's been a really great thing, and we hope to continue it. We plan to anyway. So Tish,
Well, that's
you
a
want to talk
perfect
little bit?
transition to Tish.
Yeah, do you want to
So
talk a
Tish,
little bit
could you
about?
talk about, could you talk about what kind of assistance you've received with IT needs and your perspective on having that kind of service available through high school students?
Sure. Becky had asked me to share a little background. My husband and I moved here 8 years ago, and Lauren's 92, I'm 96, and we're in one of the apartments. And yes, I certainly utilized what Becky and her team have offered us and find it very beneficial. She also wanted me to tell you a little background. Before retiring, I had taught for 7 years. Then my last 25 years, I was a special ed consultant. And just happy to be here. I call this place the Wrinkle Farm. Some people make fun of me, but Halcyon has been a good place, and the interaction that we have had with the high school students has just been, well, just so good. I call it a win-win for both generations. And after all, you're talking about teenagers relating to 70-plus-year-old people. And that's why it's good for all of us. I feel younger because of my interactions with them. And I think every phase of our life, it's an adjustment for all of us from teenagers on up. And we need to help one another during these transitions. And so we get to know those people, and listening to young people. at least for me, it makes me feel younger. And I am open now, I think, because of them, to more of the new and different ideas. Uh, there have been students here and they understand our need for repetition, for patience, as we, lose some of those abilities. It just happens. But
And as an,
sharing
excuse me.
laughter and looking for the positive aspects of life at all ages, I think it's so important.
And as an educator, were you able to help students sort of have a better sense of how to work, how to provide both the IT and customer service, IT assistance and customer service? Because obviously you have a lot of experience with helping young people develop.
And I guess I hadn't thought of it, but I encourage others who speak of, oh, I don't know how to do this, or my daughter got me an iPhone and said, well, see you, Mom. And she said, I'm scared to use that thing. And so we have a lot of people like that, they just need some Charlies and some Sawyers in their lives.
Well, that's a perfect note to transition on.
Okay.
I want to make sure, I want to raise a quick question. There's a good question from Melissa Haberichter and MFL Marmac about whether families ever need to give consent for residents to participate. Is that an issue, Becky or Kirsten, that you've dealt with?
We have not had that issue.
Wouldn't-
In
yeah.
fact, the families are very grateful that we have the tech support here. I think it, helps them up, frees up some time for them as well, and they just know that their mom and dad or whoever is getting that extra attention. So.
Thank you. And Kirsten, anything at NewAldaya where you've dealt with that question?
No, I would agree. I think the family members that have seen it, they really appreciate it. And I think if the family want to consent in terms of safety, I think the guidelines kind of help protect some of those maybe personal informations anyway. And like same with us, we have memory care, nursing, independent assisted living. I think the assisted and independent living residents, they're asking kind of everyone anyway, while they're living here. So it kind of gives a more organized, direct place to ask those questions. And I would agree. I think the family members here who have seen it, they really appreciate it and think it's, a good thing to have for them. So
that's great to hear. But good question, Melissa. So thank you for that. So I'm going to transition now to Jody Smith to talk more about how high schools can think about this opportunity and what's possible. And I'm going to step away for a minute to try to go back to my own laptop and free up my colleague who loaned me his, and hopefully I'll have video when I get back there. So hope to see you in a minute.
Thank you, Linda. So Linda asked that I join the webinar today to just kind of talk through for the school districts on if you were interested in potentially integrating an IT help desk into a classroom, or if you had a student that was interested in doing an internship, for example, how you would be able to count this as work-based learning. So as you all know, work-based learning is part of that school performance profile. It's part of that post-secondary readiness index score. So in just looking at the examples, listening through the example that Kyle provided and how they've done that at the Waterloo School District, it most closely probably aligns with what we would call a school-based enterprise. A school-based enterprise would be a type of really homegrown business within the school district where the students are going out to the assisted nursing facilities and providing that support. So the school district would be considered the employer, and then the students would be providing that service. Depending on how the school district would set that up, you could code that at the course level. So if a specific course was tied to that school-based enterprise of the IT help desk, you would be able to code that at that course level. So within your student information system, you would use that embedded indicator code of a 12, which is a simulated work experience, because school-based enterprises are considered a type of uh, simulated work experience. But with the second example, with the Halcyon House, that most closely aligns with like an internship. So they had one specific student that was participating for the entire academic year and even into the summer months. And so that most closely aligns with an internship, depending on how the school district would like to set that up. A lot of our school districts, there is a course that's associated with internships. And so you would be able to code that at that course level. And so then you would use that embedded indicator code of a 15, which would be for the internships. However, if a student was doing a standalone internship, so talking about the summer experience, for example, the school district can and should get credit for that work-based learning experience that they're offering to the student over the summer months. And so in that instance, or if it's not tied to a course at all, you would be able to code that at that individual student level. That's brand new for this year. So school districts are able to go into their student information system, pull up the student by their student ID, and then give them credit for that work-based learning experience. So there's 4 digits that are attached to that. The first 2 digits would correspond to like the program or content area. So for information technology, I believe the code is a 10. And then for the internship, again, it would be that embedded indicator code. So the second 2 digits would be the 15. Definitely happy to answer any questions that folks may have about coding, but these are definitely some really great experiences that school districts really could take advantage of and be able to provide a really great service to our local assisted nursing facilities. So if we do have any districts that are interested in potentially pursuing that, definitely reach out to myself and I can definitely set up something with both myself, Linda, and then potentially find an employer partner that's interested. I do know Linda has a lot of partners that are interested in this. I believe it's Wesley Life. They have assisted facilities all over the state. And they are extremely interested in connecting with school districts. So if you do have a Wesley Life within your school district or your area and are interested in setting something up like this, definitely let us know. And Linda and I could certainly get you in connection with that assisted facility to provide this great opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. We did start with Wesley Life, and we've reached out to a lot of other senior living communities, both standalone and part of a larger network, and we would welcome the opportunity. Lots of times, those communities already have their own high school contacts and really don't need any additional assistance. And in some cases, they don't, and we're happy to try to get something started and help as much as you would like us to, and then get out of the way when you don't need us anymore. So we really look forward to working with anyone and everyone who would like to. So are there any questions? So let me say, I put contact information for Jody and me in the chat, as I mentioned, and we'll also send that out to you along with the video afterward. Are there other questions from the audience that anyone would like to pop into the chat?
While we're waiting for those, Linda, I just wanted to mention one thing with going back to Melissa's question. There's one facility, Friendship Village, where they require the list of names of students ahead of time, and then they do background checks on them. And so it's nothing that's like any extensive or deep background check, but it's just at a high level. And then they have the names ahead of time. And so that may be different facility to facility.
Thanks. That's good information to have, Kyle. And another thing that's come up as I've talked with different senior living communities, some are comfortable with having students go into residents' apartments or rooms to help with the TV, because TV issues are a significant issue and that come up from time to time. And some places are not comfortable with that. So I think, just having some really clear shared decisions made on where students can be and where they should not be, or whether they should be accompanied by an adult if they go into an apartment separate. Usually these meetings take place in communal spaces, like a tech lab, as was mentioned, or a library, or some setting where people come to a location and residents come to a location, the students meet there. But sometimes it is in more individual settings, and so that's just something to think about to work out. So, question in the chat. Asking, I'm having trouble working out how the school district can pay students for internships since many are minors. Is there a playbook on this topic? So I know high school interns, whether they're minors or have reached the age of 18, can be paid for internships as long as they're old enough for an internship. But we have lots of 16 and 17-year-old interns, but this is Jody's area of expertise, not mine. So Jody, can I turn this question over to you?
Sure. I guess I'm just looking for a little bit more clarification. Are you looking for a funding source to help pay the interns, or is the question more revolving around whether or not interns that are minors can be paid for the internship? Because as Linda indicated, that an internship, students that are under the age of 18 can certainly be paid for an internship, but internships do not have to be paid experiences. They can be unpaid experiences. Uh, Hopefully that answers. If not, let me read more about how it can employ the students to pay uh, since May. Okay. So in terms of like the summer internship, so I guess sorry, not May. More Yes. So to Seth's point, more often than not, it's whoever is employing the student that would pay for the internship. So in terms of like a school-based enterprise, most of those students are not paid employees. They're considered employees of the school-based enterprise, but the school district is not actually paying them as paid employees like an internship. If the school district is looking to do an internship, some of the school districts have found funding in order to pay those students for that internship, but more often than not, if a student's doing a school-based enterprise or an internship for the school district, more often than not, it's a non-paid position. But for the summer example with Halcyon House was actually paying the student. So that funding was not coming from the school district.
Yeah, good clarification. Thank you, Jody. So another question in the chat, and Jody, anything else you want to add before I go on to the next question?
Nope, nope.
So this question says, this may be a question down the road, but it's for you, Jody. Does this require a classroom component to count? I think you mean to count toward a work-based learning credit,
Yeah.
and a reflection at the end. Do those have to be components or not?
Yeah. So it actually depends on how you're reporting it. So if you're reporting as a course level work-based learning component, so it's actually tied to a course, then there obviously would be some components within that course that would include the reflection and some classroom time, obviously. If it is considered a work-based learning experience, that's an individual experience outside of the school district. So for example, maybe the student took it upon themselves to get the internship at Halcyon House, so it wasn't tied to the school district at all. It is completely separate from the school district. So that summer experience, there would not be that component of the reflection, the evaluations, those pieces. Obviously, the department would love to see those, but that's not a requirement for those individual work-based learning opportunities because they are outside of the school district.
So Jody, thank
Yeah.
you. And circling back to the question of who pays for the internship, a good question about could schools pay for the internship if they got a grant to do that? In other words, could the student be do an internship, at a senior living community, but the senior living community is not just not paying for it, it's being paid for through a grant?
So in terms of like Department of Education funding, I'm not aware of any funding, and Heather might be able to correct me if she's aware of some funding, but I'm not aware of any funding through the Department of Education. I do know Iowa Workforce Development does have the summer internship funding that districts and employers can apply for. A lot of employers do apply for that funding. They're able to create or expand internship programs, and more often than not, they're using that in order to pay the students. So it's not actually coming from the school district. It's coming from that employer because they've applied for that grant.
Thank you, Jody. So please keep putting questions in the chat. I've got a couple in addition that I want to throw in for now. When I visited with one senior living community activities director, she suggested that we raise the idea of students not just providing individual IT assistance, but also to have a topic of the day every time there is a visit. If it's a group of students, maybe 5 or 6 students going to a senior living community, that besides helping with individual requests, that they have a topic of the day, like how to make the best use of a hotspot or whatever it might be. And so question for Becky and for Kirsten, has that happened in either of your settings, that there's some additional draw for people to want to attend when the students are there? And Kirsten, maybe we can start with you and then we'll go to Becky.
Yeah, I think our residents always enjoy connecting with the students. I think we've had other student groups come in, and I think there is a big draw for that when they know students are coming. Along the topic of like a topic of the day, I know we didn't do that, but I think we found that sometimes, the questions lasted the whole 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes they didn't. So I think there is even some like social time, which the residents and the students, I feel like they like, even just like get to know you questions or like different things like that still kind of build those conversation skills also. But yeah, I think they love, besides the tech, they love learning about the students. I know that sidebars are like, they'll ask students, what they're involved in and different things like that. So anything that kind of fosters, the conversation, I know the residents love that. So
thank you. Becky, anything you want to add to that?
I would agree with what Kristen said. The residents just really enjoy having the students on site. If we've done any small group, it would be on scams, on looking for phishing emails, that type of thing.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, but the majority of the time it's one-to-one support. But
Okay.
again, the residents do really enjoy, wouldn't you say, Tish?
Oh, yeah.
I agree with Kirsten. It's so much more than just tech support. It's all about connection and really getting to know the students, and the students enjoy getting to know the residents.
Let's say, Kyle, you mentioned how much the students got out of it.
And I think for their future careers, it helps them know what they might or might not want. For example, nursing. Come on, there's a lot of old folks out there, and you need to know, maybe you have a penchant for that, and other people are really, they prefer to work with a different population. So it gives them some good ideas for their future, I think.
So Tish, thank you for that observation, because it's a good transition to the next thing I wanted to mention. As I have talked with different senior living communities, it's clear that there is interest in some places about other connections with high school students. Becky, when you and Chris Marshall and I talked initially, we talked about the possibility of maybe reigniting a food service connection that Halcyon has had in the past with Washington High School. And it's, so there are other ways that students can potentially become involved in senior living communities. And it's also a great opportunity just to walk students through all those different careers, as you noted, Tish, that are at a senior living community that, everyone knows there's nursing, but they probably don't know about a lot of the other kinds of jobs and careers at senior living communities and how rewarding they are. So that is, and it's a way to stay in the community if students want to do that or come back to the community later. So it's a multidimensional opportunity. I don't know, Chris, Becky, anything you want to add to that?
No, I would agree with that. We have OJT students in nursing, in activities, in dining services, in the past, I believe in grounds. So just they are a wonderful way to, it's wonderful for them, like Tish said, to see if this is something that down the road they might want to pursue. In fact, we've had OJT students start out as hospitality aides and then move to CNAs and then go on to college for nursing. It's just neat to see that progression. And then frequently they come back as they're going through college. They are still working with us. And that's just a great win-win all the way around.
One of the things, Linda, I want to add is with the students, we were talking about whether or not it's paid or not. What my students have found and what the Career Center and students have found is their payment is when they go to apply for scholarships and when they go to apply for grants or different things and they want to continue their learning. that's a difference maker in being able to list that opportunity and then talk in detail about it in an interview or in a conversation about their scholarship, because a lot of scholarships now are interviewing kids. And so that's there's a payment there. And then along those same lines, I remember one student that would go to New Aldaya, and the same resident always asked for this student. And so she looked forward to it. And there would be times they would sit there for 45 minutes, an hour, and they would just talk. And Claire would be fine with that. I'm like, if you want to, work on something else, she goes, nope, I'm going to sit here and just talk the whole time. She goes, I enjoy it. And so seeing that in students, being able to see that enjoyment and just sitting and having a conversation, and that intergenerational, like Becky mentioned earlier, is so positive and exciting to watch.
Yeah, well, and it's a great skill set to know how to connect and build your network wherever you are. So that's a really good addition, Kyle. Thank you. And we have in the chat just a suggestion that there be an idea to encourage matching funds between a senior center and the school district. That is something we'll have to take a look at. I wish we had more funding, but this is we do have some really, the summer youth intern program has been a great resource that Jody mentioned. I will just share with everyone, in case you don't know, that application window closed on February 16th. So for this year anyway, that is moving forward. So just wanted to add that. So Kyle or Kirsten, Tish, Becky, and Jody, anything else any other questions that you might have, or any other comments? I know Jody's going to wrap us up here in a minute, but any other thoughts you want to share today with the broader audience?
Just one final thought from my perspective is, I kind of had some of those same thoughts about the money and the payment and everything. There are, if it needs to be paid, ask the facility. They may be willing to, like in Washington, like's happening down there, they may be willing to pay the student. Also, another way is through the grant system. If there was a grant to your school foundation, that's another way to do it, is if there's people out there. So contact the school foundation and see if they would have a grant opportunity or a way of paying the student potentially. But make sure you ask, and don't think it's not possible. It is possible, and it is a great experience. I would encourage everybody to do it.
Thank you, Kyle. Those are great suggestions. Kirsten, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think this is something that I, never expected to be a part of. And I think it really helped the residents and the students, like you said, Linda, building the skill set. I remember coming out of college, it's different talking to different populations and different generations. So I think it's cool to see students get comfortable with the residents. And like others have mentioned too, the residents love seeing the students, and it's kind of a fulfillment for both residents and students. The students get to help the residents get their questions answered, and the residents are like, oh my gosh, I've been wondering how to do this, for so long. And so I think it's cool to kind of see the fulfillment and the connections grow in both of them. I think it's a really good opportunity. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. And thank you and Kyle for inspiring the playbook and helping us get this out to a broader audience. Becky and Tish, anything you want to add? And I think you might be muted.
I just want to thank Becky for letting me in, and I just feel quite honored, and it's wonderful to hear your different ideas, and I just say, go for it. It's worth the effort.
Well, it was Becky's brilliant idea, I say, to include you, and I wish I thought of it, but I didn't. It was Becky. So thank you, Becky. And anything else you want to add?
No, I want to thank you, Linda, for making this it was a great opportunity today to be able to share what we're doing.
Well, thank you. And scaling this up is really a team effort between Iowa Workforce Development and the Department of Ed. So we have a team that does this, and this is just one of the many kinds of work-based learning that we help encourage. And so you have all given us just a great examples to share. So with that, Jody, may I turn the floor over to
Sure.
you to wrap things up, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank all of our panelists for hopping on and taking time out of your day to share all these great opportunities. And then I also wanted to thank those that are in attendance for joining us today to learn about the great things that Kyle has set up and that our friends at the Halcyon's House has set up, and Kristen as well. So thank you all. I did want to remind everybody that this is being recorded and we will be sending out the recording here in the coming days, along with all the resources that Linda mentioned, including that playbook. So if you are interested in creating one of these opportunities, you'll have the step-by-step information on how to do that. Also wanted to remind you that we do have an upcoming webinar on March 10th. It's a pretty exciting webinar because it's my area. So for IRCs, so how we're working to integrate IRCs into coursework in the curriculum. So that's scheduled for March 10th. And then once again, I know Linda already said this and I've said it as well, but if you are interested in setting up an opportunity like the ones that we talked about today, definitely feel free to reach out to myself, reach out to Linda, and we would be happy to assist you in creating one of these amazing opportunities, whether it's, going through the steps on how to get it started or connecting you with an employer that would be interested in creating one of these partnerships. But with that, that's all I have. And I hope everyone has a great afternoon. Thanks.